Welcome to the Hidden Tracks podcast. My name's Shane Murphy, your host as always for this podcast. You can find us at Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, basically anywhere you find your podcasts. You can reach us at myhiddentracks.com. You can email us directly at myhiddentracks99@gmail. Find us on Twitterverse of myhiddentracks1, hiddentracks99, Instagram, and just Hidden Tracks at Facebook. Today I'm delighted to have Jared Mann from Twin Foxes. Found this band a while ago and pretty stoked to have him here. He's been in a lot of things that I've really enjoyed, a band called Willow, Big Tall Buildings. He also has a solo project and amazing music. Again, I try to tell people all the time, when you're listening to this, first thing you do is you go out and you search this artist and you listen to their music and you support them. So today, Jared, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me, man.
Well, it's totally my pleasure. Got to say, big fan. I don't want to fanboy out, but
that's all good. I appreciate that.
I love your album. When I first heard it, Sleeping on the Attic Floor, it just made me search out everything else you were part of. So
cool. Yeah, I've been doing it a while, and I feel like we're not like a huge band or anything, so it's cool when someone kind of goes back and checks out other projects I've been working on. So
well, it's a big thing, and for me, I try to tell people that if you ever see a show or you ever find a band that you like and there's a way to contact them or email them, tell them that you like them, you got to do it, because there's too many people that put out great music and no one ever told them how good they were, and then they just give up.
For sure. Yeah, it happens all the time, unfortunately.
So let's get started with the elephant in the room, which is the pandemic. How have you been surviving musically through this?
It's been really obviously pretty weird, and it's been an interesting time. I mean, I luckily have a studio where I've been pretty much every record I've ever done, I've recorded at the studio. And I built that probably about 5 years ago. And I've always done DIY recording, whether it's in, my basement or, way back in the day in my parents' house or wherever it was. But luckily now I have a studio, which is, not at my apartment. So I can basically get out of there and make music, when I need to, and kind of just have that space for myself.
And so you've released a couple singles recently. So that, leads me to believe that new album that I think you've been working on for a little while is going to hopefully come out soon.
Yeah, it is. I'm not great at social media, but basically we have a record that's done, and it should be out, I would say, hopefully within the next 2 months or so. We kind of this record was an interesting one because it's been done for a little while. I think I finished it last fall, last year. So I've kind of been sitting on it and trying to figure out who was going to put it out. And, luckily we're working with one of the same labels we did the last record with, but, to, basically figure out who's going to put it out and kind of figure out that stuff. It took a little time. Then, of course, the pandemic hit, and it's kind of made things a little confusing and got a little delayed. But yeah, I've been putting out some singles, and then I think hopefully either right before the end of the year or maybe January, we're going to put it out digitally. And then we're doing kind of like a GoFundMe for the vinyl this time, just because this time around, like the label we're working with, obviously coronavirus has been pretty tricky, but this way the pre-order will go through the GoFundMe, and then we can kind of ensure that we can make the record without jumping through, more hoops than we have to. But I feel like it should go pretty good. So we're pretty.
Yeah. Well, I'll promote the shit out of it for you.
Cool, man.
So I want to get into, let's very simply, how did music become something to you? And I preface this and let the guests know, when you're a child, you basically have Sesame Street, Barney, cartoon theme songs, soundtracks to cartoons to Disney movies. But at some point, you hear something different that changes a person when they're young, that becomes music, and it leads you to somewhere else, or leads you to, what the fuck is this? Why have I never heard anything like this? Do you remember when that was in your life?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, I had an older brother There's just two of us, my parents, obviously, but he was about 9 years older than me. So that age difference, he kind of introduced me into like skateboarding and into, like a lot of punk rock or just indie stuff. 90s was a good time for a lot of music, in my opinion. So it was a good age to grow up at and to kind of get exposed to some of that stuff. And,
There was a vast array in the 90s of
yeah,
music.
and there was like good bands that basically, were getting record contracts and stuff like that. So I feel like obviously now it's different, but back then, like there was actually good bands that were, could survive, that were not necessarily like, top 40 type of stuff. So I think like a first couple bands I heard that, changed me, like Weezer was one of the first bands, and this band called Super Drag that around the
Super
same
Drag's
time.
awesome.
Yeah, they're like, that was the first CD I ever bought, was their first record, Regretfully Yours, and that was a record that stayed with me for a long time and kind of got me excited. And there's definitely other bands, but the first two Weezer records, I think, Dookie probably, for, I'm not a huge Green Day fan, honestly, but that record was around that time, and that was an influence for sure. But yeah, I feel like, mid 90s, I was pretty young, but I would say that got the ball rolling for me. Like my brother would just go to Newbury Comics and just spend like a couple $100 and just get a bunch of CDs. And, we drive around in his car, and there was enough of an age difference where, he had his own, had his own ear, and he could kind of like pick and choose stuff, and that whatever was playing in the car, that was kind of like what became the soundtrack to, those summers and hanging out and stuff like that. And eventually he got a guitar, and, with some instruments laying around, I pretty much started to pick stuff up. And that's kind of where a lot of the recording came from too, because he actually worked at a Guitar Center for a little while and like got some recording equipment. And I was that age difference where he's maybe 20 and I'm 10, having that stuff around, like I kind of picked it up and started to kind of mess around and started playing drums around that time, and all kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, I get that huge age gap. My brother's 10 years older than me, so
yeah, very similar.
I completely get it. And I'm a little older than you, so like my brother gave me the classic rock. He gave me also like Iron Maiden and AC/DC.
Sure. I love Iron Maiden. I love AC/DC too. Yeah,
and just basically blew my mind when I was younger to hear that kind of stuff. When did you? So you're saying your brother had this stuff around. When did you like figure out that you were pretty good at doing something, or when did you have these visions in your head that of picking up a guitar, playing drums, that you could possibly do something with this?
Well, I really liked, like all those bands a lot, and it really had nothing to do with me playing it all for a long time. Like, I would ear drum or ear guitar or whatever, like when I was a kid, and it was just like, it was just stupid. But when I got older, like I remember, I want to say maybe it was probably like maybe like 7th or 8th grade. I went over to a friend's house, and they had like a kind of like a pseudo recording setup with like a drum set. And I went down there, and I just thought it was like the coolest thing. And basically, he had a drum set, and I was like, oh man, I think I just really want to play drums. And I'm left-handed, so like I would watch like music videos, and these guys would be playing with like their opposite hand. I was like, man, I'm doing it totally wrong. So like I then switched my hands and then figured out how to play, more or less righty. And of course, my drum teacher later was like, "Oh man, you should have stuck with the left open hand." But I basically adapted to that and kind of started with drums, and then, like I said, my brother had guitars lying around, and he was left-handed as a guitar player, but he was actually right-handed, and I'm predominantly left-handed. So luckily, we both could play the same left-handed guitars. So that was kind of an anomaly right there. But, that kind of started me playing guitar. And I mean, I was terrible for a very long time. But luckily, if you start at like 13 and you just play in your basement all the time, by the time you're like 16, you're starting to get like some chops here and there,
So when did you, if you went over to a friend's house, they had this recording stuff. When did you get that? I mean, because everybody has that essential first band that you were in when you're a teenager.
For sure. Yeah, I think I remember they had a drum set, and I think I just bugged the crap out of my parents basically until I think my brother's friend, they were getting rid of a Yamaha drum kit. And, pretty much we bought it. My dad bought it from them, and I started playing, and that kind of got things moving. but like I'm trying. What were you saying? The first band?
Yeah, when you're a kid and you get with some pals, and that the first stuff you do is garbage, but you're really excited about it. And
Yeah, right.
what was that?
So once that kind of started moving in that direction, like I think I'm trying to think of the first band. So we definitely like messed around, in my basement. Cause like I said, we eventually kind of had like a pretty DIY kind of little setup down there for practicing and stuff and just jamming out. And I think I was around probably 11th grade where like some old friends of mine basically that I'd grown up with, one of them started playing in the jazz band. He was playing drums and I was playing guitar at the time, and my buddy Taylor was just a friend of ours, and he kind of liked to sing and stuff like that. So we started jamming in the basement, and we would like make these really crappy recordings. And I had been kind of doing some 4-track recording too before that. I should say that probably came first, and that was kind of really just dipping my toe into like learning recording and stuff like that. But that was the first band, and that was like this band called The Ride Home, and that kind of took me through high school. Like I want to say we started jamming around like 11th grade, and we played like talent shows and maybe like a couple garages and stuff like that, and that basically started the process. And then that band basically slowly formed into my first main band, which was Big Tall Buildings, and those two guys basically ended up being in that band. And that was like the end of high school, and then basically like first year of college, that's when we started Big Tall Buildings.
And what was that like for you? I mean, you go from high school to college, Big Tall Buildings. I'll tell people, just go out and listen to it. It's good. It'll give you to where you are now.
Yeah, it's definitely a very different band from kind of the stuff I'm doing now. But I think at the time I was like really inspired by like the idea of just like getting all my friends together and like writing music. And the idea of that band was really kind of like no one really had to be good at an instrument or like really know how to play. We kind of just like, we're like, well, we'll just like, you can just play the tambourine or you can play this or that. And then through that, like I ended up I think at the beginning it was like 8 people in the band. And surprisingly enough, most of them were actually they were young, but they were pretty good at music. They were in like jazz or chorus or whatever. And in that, I was probably the one that had, no music theory, or really I had taken maybe a little bit of drum lessons, but I didn't really have a background in music. But I really kind of was creative. My mom was an art teacher and like my dad was a machinist. So I had like this kind of thing with my hands. I kind of felt like, so I really liked writing music and not having the theory. I felt like I kind of just like, I don't know, came up with weird ideas or like song ideas, and I really enjoyed that. So I basically would just take song ideas and bring it to them, and we'd get together and start jamming. And at the beginning we were pretty bad, but by the end, like I think when we broke up, like the last few shows we were playing, like I felt like we were to this day like still like a pretty good live band. And once I knew like I could do that and like how much it meant to me and like how excited it was for me like throughout all those years, like it didn't fade at all. So it was kind of like it lit a fire, I guess you could say.
So what was your process like? I mean because writing music is for people that don't know, it can be easy or it can be overly complicated. And for you to like step into something like that, what was your process like to just learn to write that music?
Yeah, I felt like all that stuff kind of just came out of me. I felt like at the time I was, just like you're at that age where stuff is still like new all the time. So I felt like I would, get inspired and stuff would kind of just come out of me. So recording has always been a kind of a part of like what I do. Like, to this day, I still record. I've recorded every release I've ever done basically. And, I do it as a side gig for other bands, and I work out of a studio and I worked at venues and all this stuff. So all that eventually came from, basically trying to write songs and record. And a lot of the ideas, I would just put them down, and sometimes that would just become a song through like the recording process and writing it there. But a lot of like the actually like sitting down and like writing it out, a lot of it came like fairly easy, to be honest. It was just kind of like flowed out of me at the time, just because I was probably so excited just to write songs and figure out arrangements and write words. And it's just like a certain time in your life too, where like I feel like you're easily influenced by your surroundings, and luckily I had good friends, and it was just like a good time, in my life. So I felt like it got the ball rolling in that aspect, and it all came fairly easy. I can't really remember sitting down and really writing a lot of those songs, to be honest. Some of it probably came from jamming, but a lot of it, probably was pretty just like a natural thing that happened.
So you said you're sound guy, audio engineer, you have your own studio. What's the difference between when you're doing sound for another band as opposed to when you're recording your own music? What's the big difference, or what did you learn from doing that? Did you learn anything different that you should have been doing for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of there's a lot of things probably that I could say, but for the most part, when I'm recording a band, a lot of it's technical, to be honest, because it's just like trying to get everything right. And usually I record a lot of like local bands here in Rhode Island, and like a lot of the times we're under like a time constraint. So, we're basically trying to do as much as we can within a certain amount of time, and we're trying to get the best sounds we can. And for the most part, I don't really like produce a lot of bands. Like I might have an idea here and there, but for the most part, I just try to capture bands like either live or in kind of like their most like authentic setting. So I don't really try to like touch the sound of the band too much. And, I've certainly learned a lot about recording other bands, whether it's like mic techniques or how to get sounds, and, like just the vibe of the people in the room, how much that can affect a recording. But like, when it comes to recording my own stuff, I mean, I've always recorded my own stuff, and luckily, we always had recording stuff, at where I grew up in my house and stuff like that. And that allowed me to kind of like take as much time as I want. And I think, I've recorded only, I think, one other time as a studio, and I just like hated it because like I felt like I couldn't relax, and I just, for me to make music that way, like unless I was recording live with a band and trying to bang it out, I feel like for me it's like I was just never comfortable doing that. And I've kind of just been working to continually set myself up to be as comfortable as possible throughout the years in my recording. So I was thinking about that today, like driving to the studio that I've recorded everything I've ever done as far as bands, and I was like, I kind of didn't even realize that until I kind of was thinking about what I've done over the few years. So it's definitely it's like a comfort thing at the end of the day, and I think it allows me to like see ideas like all the way through, and I guess I kind of just get lost in the work and kind of just not have a clock ticking over my head, more or less.
Yeah, and you probably also, you're the one who knows what you want to come out, and somebody else sitting behind that board really doesn't know your vision. I mean, you can explain it to them as much as you want and try to play it to them as much as you want, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's yours.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's guys that are good at that. I mean, I just like, some recording engineers I looked up to have been like Steve Albini and stuff like that. People that are like, they don't really want to like change what the band is trying to do. They're just trying to capture them in that moment. And I feel like the band obviously knows what they want, and hopefully that's represented through the playing and the tones they choose, and of course experimentation can lead to other things, but for the most part, you kind of are going into it expecting that the band kind of already knows what they want to do. And I've never tried to change that in any respect. I just kind of want them to be comfortable, and how I kind of view recording, just give them time to do what they need to do, and hopefully we just capture it. And like, especially recording live, like the people playing together and communicating, through the music, that's the most important thing to me. If I can capture that generally, and if the vibe is good, we usually get something good,
Yeah, and that's why my favorite spot at shows to be is I'm always right next to the soundboard.
Yeah, because that's absolutely.
Like no matter where it is, I search it out at the venue, and that's where I'm going to be by for the rest of the night.
For sure. Yeah, and if it's a good sounding room, I mean, that's the place to be.
So Twin Foxes, let's get to there. This is
sure.
where I fell in love. How did this all come about, and how quickly did it come about after Big Tall Buildings? And like, how did you just be like, all right, this is what I'm doing now?
Yeah, I mean, Big Tall Buildings was a thing where like I wrote all the music in the band, basically. Not like the drums and stuff, but I'd write all the guitar parts, and I wrote all the vocal melodies and all the lyrics and stuff, but I wasn't the singer of the band. And I mean, Alex, the singer, the actual singer of that band, the vocalist, like he ended up writing some stuff later on in the band, but I was kind of like directing behind the scenes more or less. And then I ended up, when that band broke up, I ended up joining Willow with Seth and Trevor, and I played drums specifically in that because I always wanted to really play drums in a band. So
yeah, it's also kick-ass. That's I try to explain to somebody. I go, listen, if you like a breakdown in a song, just listen to Willow because everything's a breakdown with hard-hitting fucking drums in it. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, so I mean, like I felt like it was almost like not resume building, but like experience building is probably a better way to say it. Like I wanted to like be the guitarist in the band, but also kind of like the songwriter, and I wanted to be the drummer in the band, and I kind of wanted to like do all that stuff. And then, you know, it was kind of something I think at the time I was kind of a little nervous to do. I was like, I always kind of want to front a band. I always kind of wanted to like see what would happen. And I guess, you know, when I think back, this is probably like 6 years ago now, it didn't seem like, I was like, I don't know if I should do it. And now I'm very happy because it was actually super natural progression. And I guess looking back, it was 100% going that way. But at the time I was kind of nervous to do it, but I made the transition. And I think by the time we started, this was 2014. This was, when we started, Andrew was basically the bass player that was in Big Tail Buildings. He was the bass player that I basically asked to jam with, and Carlos, who is our drummer now, who actually played on the 7-inch in the demo, but he didn't play on the full length. That was Dylan. But I was jamming with Carlos at the time, and it was just kind of for fun. I was like very burnt out on music, to be honest. I had done all those bands, and like I guess being in my early 20s, I like expected something to happen or whatever, and I kind of got a little bummed out by that, or just like stuff going on in my life. I'd finished college and was kind of just like working random jobs, and I was just kind of tired. So I took a break for a couple years, and I was kind of just writing stuff in my apartment on acoustic guitar. And then I was like, well, we should just like, Andrew, we should just jam again with this dude, Carlos, I've been jamming with. I met him at basically a job I had, and he was a good drummer. And I was just like, yeah, we should do something for fun. So we kind of went into it with like no expectations. And I think that was a good way to go about it because,
takes all the pressure off you.
It takes pressure off, and it was just fun again. I think that's kind of what I had been missing for a while. Like it just hadn't been really fun. Like Willow was like a very emotional band. Like I felt like very connected to those dudes playing, but we fought all the time, and they'll laugh about it too. It's just like how that band was, you know what I mean? But I just wanted to have fun again. And basically, we went into it and no pressure. We just like, I had just built the studio with my dad actually, he had a barn, and basically the attic of the barn was an empty space, and I was looking for a place to do the studio. He's like, oh, you should just like do it here. We could just build it. So I was like, yeah, let's do it, man. So that was right around that time. And it was just like a lot was going on, and it felt like we were kind of making moves, to record and kind of be a band again, or for myself at least. And, that's where we did the demo. That was like 2014. Like the studio was completely unfinished, and so all the recordings were super raw. And that was the 7-inch too. We did that right after that. And then like we released the first song, and like Vice picked it up, which is really cool. And I never really had like anyone really notable like give a shout out to anything I've really done. So that was like, I was like, oh, this is like the first song we released, and someone's paying attention to it. So I was like, we should keep going. And it feels like
it only takes one song.
Yeah, it only takes one song, and it's not like it's a huge hit or anything like that. But it was just like, it was a nice like momentum, or like push, I guess I needed at the time in my life.
Yeah, so. a kick in the ass, like a pat on the back, saying, "Hey, this is good."
Yeah, maybe I should keep doing this or something. So. That was those were only 2015, and basically we started like touring right away, and like I was working in a venue at the time, so like my life was just music, and there was a couple like really great years there where I was just like playing music, recording bands, and working in a venue every night. And we got some few tours under our belt, and then slowly but surely we were demoing, sleeping on the attic floor for like, I want to say a couple of years. Within that time, we banged out the demo and the 7-inch pretty fast, but we took our time with the full length.
No, that full length is so background of I do deep dives into Bandcamp,
Sure.
and
I was going to say
all
that's
of a
probably how you found us, because otherwise, yeah.
yeah, and I literally saw it. I was like, all right, let me check it out, and I listened to everything, and then all of a sudden, like, I find myself, I listen to the entire album. Then the next day, download the album, plug it into my stereo in the studio, blast it. My wife comes down, she's like, "What is this?" I was like, "It's Twin Foxes." She goes, "This is so you." I'm like, it is. I'm like, they're fucking awesome. I'm like, this is amazing. I couldn't believe that I hadn't heard anything prior to it. Like it was one of those things where there was no band that I could equate it to.
Yeah.
There's no, like, when somebody says, I'm like, oh yeah, check these guys out. They sound exactly like fucking Superchunkers. Check these guys out. They sound like Weezer. I was just like,
Yeah.
somebody's like, what do they sound like? I'm like, figure it out for your fucking self. Here it is. Listen.
Yeah, I mean those are two good references, though. Will say, like, Superchunk's a big band for me too, and I think early on when we first started playing, people would always like throw that reference out. But yeah, I mean, I like a lot of music, and like, I don't know, that record, like, I worked really hard on that record. I mean, like, we went through a whole series of things making that record too, like. Our original drummer ended up leaving, and Dylan came in, which was like a friend of ours who was in another local band, ended up filling in on drums, even though like Carlos had already kind of written it all. So we kind of went through like a heavy demoing stage. We tried to record it a few times, and like it wasn't working. So we ended up like taking a break and coming back and doing it. And I went through a bunch of amps making, the same amp, but my main amp went down like 3 times or something making it. It was just like a lot of funny things happened during the making of it. It was just kind of like a long marathon, and we ended up we mixed everything for the first 2 releases, and then that one I was like, at the time I was kind of working live sound once in a while at another venue called Machines and Magnets in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and those guys became my friends, and like they've done a bunch of like huge records, like Battles and Lightning Bolt, and like good bands from Providence and stuff like that. And Seth and me talked, and we're like, well, yeah, we should just mix it here. And that was just like a thing where I couldn't really finish the record. I didn't want to mix it because I just spent so much time on it, and I was just like kind of over it. And he kind of helped tone it in. And I mean, I'm digressing a little bit, but more or less, like, that whole time period was just like an interesting time, and we managed to push through it, but there was a lot of shit that happened. And eventually I think that record especially, like, had to work especially hard to finish, but I'm still really happy with how it came out. There's a lot of like dark shit on that record that I think going through at the time that I need to like get off my chest too. And, it was kind of therapeutic too, when it was done. So, that record's definitely like special to me, and I'm glad you connected with it, because, I don't know if it's lyrically or maybe just the sound, but there's definitely like probably some very specific things in my life that it came from. So it's cool that, someone else can connect to that,
Yeah, no. And when it comes to it, I break down everything. I'm the quintessential nerd when it comes to music. I'll listen to a song 15 times to hear every single instrument individually, to listen to the vocals, and then to listen to the lyrics. I always, there's a difference between listening to the vocals and listening to the lyrics when the song comes out. And I like to dissect it, and it makes me fall in love, and it gives me that sense of, oh, wow. I try to point it out to people, like, did you catch that time change? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh, it was fucking brilliant. And, it's those little things in there that I dissected, and it just becomes more and more a part of, it feels like I become a part of the song because I'm catching little tiny things here and there that makes the song even better and better every time I listen to it.
Yeah, I'm super into like kind of mathy stuff too. I mean, Willow kind of got me especially into that, but I like a lot of like bands that are really subtly good at that. Like when I was driving up here to the studio, I was like listening to Pinback, and like they're one of those bands that's just like, subtle, time signatures changes. Like, I guess if you play music, it's like one of those nerdy things that like you'll constantly catch, but other people just kind of like glaze over.
Yeah. So if the first album took you, to the point of going through everything in your life and all the shit you were going through, and having someone else, mix it for you when you were done? Because I understand when you write a song and you listen to that song and you record it and you play it 500 times, you're basically just like, you're done with it. You're like, okay, I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
So how did you get to, how was it easier to come into the second album?
Well, the second album, this record, the one, Broken Bell, that's going to come out soon, is very different. I mean, that record, Sleep in the Attic Floor, basically, I even kind of stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit by letting someone else hear it, but I realized how like important that kind of is, and getting like just Seth to hear it and basically just get another set of ears on it. And it gave me the confidence to maybe try some other things too. And for Broken Bell, basically, right after we finished Sleep in the Attic Floor, like we had played a little bit, and then basically Dylan left the band, the guy that played on the entire record, and he's still one of my good friends. But at the time, like, it was like, fuck, I was like, this kind of sucks, just because he played all over the thing, and if we were going to tour or doing stuff like that, it was going to make it tricky. So basically, we didn't have a drummer for, I would say, at least a year. And Andrew played on the record, was still in the band. And my buddy Trevor, who had been in Willow, basically joined on second guitar. He hadn't played any. I played all the guitar on Sleep in the Attic Floor, but basically he came in as like another guy that I'd played music with forever and trusted. And we were going to like write some stuff and see what happens. And basically at that point, I was like, well, we can either keep demoing in the hopes that we get a drummer, or like I could just play drums on it and we can just do that. And I mean, secretly, I've always like kind of want to do that stuff. And eventually I think, it'll be something that I do more of. But I was like, well, I need to like prove it to myself that I can do it for some reason, I guess. So we started demoing, or I was even just demoing on my own at the studio, just kind of like doing like these kind of like free form kind of demos like I did when I was like a kid, where I would just like sit down and just make a song and not have anything really written or demoed, and kind of just go for it. And that kind of happened like subconsciously, like a few times, like a couple tracks on the new record. Like I was just like, I demoed them and I was like, oh, I really like that song. Like, and I mean, the Broken Bell is basically became this whole record of not ramshackle like recordings, but like basically like kind of random recordings that happened throughout those couple years. And I ended up playing everything on the record besides bass, basically, and Trevor had a couple things here and there. But it was just this record that was kind of almost about like in a way, not lyrically, but the band kind of like fell apart, and I was like, I have to try to keep this going somehow. So I'm going to like just try to put it on my back and just kind of keep going. So it's to me, it sounds like a very different record. And I mean, I have no idea what other people will think of it. But I'm really proud of it. I mean, it's definitely one that is a change in sound, and it might be kind of like a little bit of the oddball in the discography, if we keep going. But I think it kind of just like encapsulated a time where like, it was like, all right, we got to keep pushing through. And I think like lyrically, I ended up like, I actually struggled with the song order for a long time, because I had a bunch of ideas for what songs I was going to do on it. And I had older demos. I was like, oh, I want to redo this song, and I'm going to record all the drums in like a couple of days, so we can get like a very cohesive sound, like the last record, Sleep in the Attic Floor, where we did like in consecutive sessions. And then I did that, and then I was like, I think the demos on a couple of them just sound better, like the vibe's better. So then I kind of came up with this idea that maybe I should let go of the control of making everything kind of sound perfect on this record, and kind of embrace the fact that things will be recorded at different times and kind of made up of like, songs that were at different points of the band and random times within this year. And it kind of makes this like, in my mind, it was like a broken kind of like, I don't know, arrangement in a way of like these different kind of moments and songs. And then I ended up like kind of putting together, and I'm talking about this like someone's heard the record, but they haven't heard it yet. But basically, found an order that made like sense to me, because so far, like, Sleep in the Attic Floor was like basically a concept record. And this record, I realized how important that kind of is to me to kind of have like, I heard someone talk about it the other day, like a magnet, like having like, something that all the songs can kind of like stick to and like have a cohesive kind of thing on a record. And it makes sense to me because as I was doing this one, I kind of needed to find that, and that story of kind of like A, trying to keep the band going, and B, like, I don't know, just these random recordings and stuff like that throughout these years and sessions to kind of create this one record. It started to sound pretty cool to me. So it ended up being trickier because stuff was recorded differently, but I ended up going back to machines, and I DI'd, which is like a technical term for like, I did like direct guitars for everything on the record, and in hopes that we could reamp everything at a different studio and get a more cohesive sound. So we did that, and I felt like it ended up kind of aiding to that and kind of making it a little more cohesive, but still having like these kind of different sounding songs on the record. And at the time I was like very into this band Sparkle Horse, that he kind of like goes very into like
one of my favorites.
Yeah. Basically like, his recordings are all over the place sometimes. And I was like, why can't I do that? I'm being a control freak about stuff. So this record, what he did like kind of inspired me a little bit, kind of like let go of that a little bit and kind of have some songs have some different drum sounds on them or some different guitar sounds. And so this record is really different, I guess you could say, and it compared to the last record, but I hope people dig it. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, is David, You Are, and 6 Years Old, the 3 songs that you released off?
Yeah.
So the singles, they're all on there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, those kick ass already. So, I mean, if that's a fucking taste of what's to come.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. So those are like, some of my favorites off of it, but, hopefully it's out soon. We're working with the label right now to figure out, how we're going to release it soon, but, it's probably going to come out digitally before, vinyl comes out. But, yeah, I'm excited to get that out because, I think that record was actually harder to make than Sleeping in the Attic Floor, and Sleeping in the Attic Floor for me was like I'm super happy with it, but it was painful. There was some painful work on that one. And this one was tough for me, I think, especially because it was just so much of me on it. I had really no other outside voices, and Andrew came in and kind of recorded bass after everything was kind of done. He had like seen it, but like, so the whole time I'm really my only editor, and I'm the only voice really of reason. And it kind of became maddening at a certain point. And Cindy, my fiance, was just like, she's like, you just need to like finish this record because it's like driving you crazy. And I kind of like made a bunch of mistakes making it, and I think, but they were like important mistakes to make that I think is going to help in like recording new stuff and shit like that. But it was just like really like, it was just a weird time, and like it really had to push through and just like keep going and do everything myself. And it was just a lot of work, I guess, in the end, but I'm happy with it. Hopefully people get to hear it soon.
Yeah, I hope so. You keep yourself, pretty busy. I mean, not as much anymore without having venues open and stuff like that, but you also do solo stuff, try to record some solo stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I'm finally dedicating some time to. Like I put out, I had this project called Great Western States that was like, I put out a demo right at the end of college, probably like 2011 or 12 or something like that. And then I released a split with a friend of mine in this band called Holiday Music, Stu John, a great musician. And I always wanted to do a full length, and I kind of always did random songs. And I have a lot of that stuff that's never been released, honestly, because I feel like I'm still kind of searching for what I'm trying to do there. But I started dedicating kind of some rules to myself about the project, kind of doing more like acoustic guitar stuff, and dedicating some time to like actually sitting down and writing. Because I mean, for a while I was kind of just living like a musician life where I kind of worked at a venue and I toured, and now I have like a full-time job, plus I do the studio. So it's at least right now having the full-time job, I mean, during coronavirus has been a godsend, but otherwise, I might be screwed. But hopefully when this is all over, I can actually try to do studio stuff full-time. That's kind of my goal. And then I'll just be doing that in music and finally, hopefully, get a Great Western States record done.
Yeah, I heard some of that stuff, and I mean, I guess I'd like to know, do you use the same influences? I mean, everybody has influences in their music, stuff they listen to get them to a certain place.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, when you did something like Great Western States, and then you do something like Twin Foxes or Willow or Big Tall Buildings, do you have different bands that you pull from, to inspire you? Because there's different sounds to everything you're doing, which, I mean, it puts you all over the place. Or do you just have your simple stuff that you constantly always go back to? Or
yeah, I feel like I do listen to the same records a lot. I mean, I'm definitely like, one of my favorite songwriters of all time is Blake Schwarzenbach from Jawbreaker and Jets Brazil. That's like some of my favorite
the
stuff.
Forgetters.
Ever. Yeah, Forgetters too. I got to see them a couple times. But that was a band that I got into at an early age that's been, a big influence on me and kind of got me into this other side of punk that, influenced my life too. But I would say they're a big influence. And Modest Mouse, their early records are a huge influence for me. A lot of the stuff that came out of Chicago, like the Captain Jazz guys, that was a big influence for me. Sparkle Horse, Pinback, Weaker Thans. John K. Sampson is one of my favorite lyricists of all time.
He's unbelievable. I saw him a couple of years ago on Halloween night in New York City, and I was just like,
that's awesome.
And I'd seen the Weaker Thans a couple times, and I had also seen Propaganda back in the day.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just like to see that difference, and I guess it's kind of, I mean, using Jawbreaker or the Weaker Thins or something like that, to see the change that one person made is amazing. Like, Jawbreaker, I think when it came to Jawbreaker, I think Blake was kind of leaning towards Jets to Brazil when Dear You was written and coming out.
I was actually thinking about that this week, how crazy that record came out, and then a year later Orange Rhyming Dictionary came out, because I was like, those records are like so different, but they're both so good. It's just insane to me. I mean, that Jets Brazil record is actually, the first record is my favorite thing that dude ever did. I love that record.
Yeah, I was listening to it the other day. I mean, and I go back to it sometimes, like when there's this, I hate genre labeling, and I hate names that genres have, like the emo label. I guess I'm a gigantic emo nerd, but
yeah, I don't like the term either.
I don't like the term, but I go back to the day and I'm like, all right, so the first emo record that I really ever heard and I got was Sunny Day Real Estate's Diary.
Sure.
And then I go back and I listen to stuff. I'm like, Jawbreaker? And I was a huge Jawbreaker fan. Mm-hmm. And I'd seen him a bunch of times. 24-Hour Revenge Therapy is one of my favorite albums of all time.
Yeah.
But sure. Dear You was like, I go back and I constantly listen to it. I'm like, holy shit. So Dear You was a complete emo record.
Yeah. I guess definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, and then he went, Jets to Brazil was an emo band, basically, as it's classified.
Yeah.
But I'm like, fuck. Like, I didn't even realize it at the time, because I thought Sunny Day was so different, but you can put that, Diary and Dear You together and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the term to me is just weird, because if you're going to label them emo, like Fugazi's also kind of emo too. So it's like, and a lot of people would never call Fugazi that, but to me,
they call it, they give it the better name, which is post-hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're going to say music is like emotional, so you're going to call it emo. To me, like, so much music is emotional. It's just, excuse me, it's just like insane to say that that, like, one thing is especially emotional. I don't know. It's just like, to me, it just sounds kind of like indie rock made by kind of more or less dudes around, like white guys around that time. But like, I don't know. It's just like, it's interesting that it gets labeled so hard as being emo, because when I was like, like later in my like teens, I would hear like bands like Simple Plan, and I was like, they would call that emo. And I was like, to me, that music was so bad. So like, I always kind of thought of that as being emo. And then like people would call bands that like I listened to, like, even like Rites of Spring or something, like emo. I'm just like, but that's like, the Simple Plan was like that band. You can't call those two bands the same thing. That's ridiculous.
No, they can't fall under that same fucking label. Rites of Spring and Simple Plan cannot fall underneath the
exactly.
same label.
And it's funny because like Simple Plan, or I think it's Simple Plan, one of those bands was like highly influenced by Lifetime, which is a band I love too. But I was like,
My Jersey Brothers.
oh really? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know, man. That's a tough term. I mean, it's changed so much. It's like you can't. I don't think the definition has really stayed true throughout that time. So
No, because I mean, I was reading something the other day in one of the fucking magazines I get, and they're like, third wave of emo is kicking ass. And I'm like, wait, when was the second wave? And then I had a buddy who explained to me, is like, well, My Chemical Romance was the second wave of emo. I'm like, Guyliner was the second wave? Like that.
yeah, I
I'm
don't
like,
know.
that's weird.
So weird. And there was all that revival stuff. And that's like kind of when we put out our first 7-inch, there was like, I feel like a couple labels hit us up because it was so popular again. But I was like, I don't associate myself with these bands. Like I don't feel connected to these other like revival emo bands. I just thought it was like so over the top, and I'm being influenced more by like 90s, even like late 80s bands, like to just lump my band in with that too, or like we would get like references to like Taking Back Sunday and stuff like that. I'm just like, I don't see it, but apparently emo is just this blanket term for like a bunch of shit. It's just, I don't know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's somebody hears something different that they don't know how to describe, they just throw it in the emo bin.
Yeah, I don't know.
When it's like somebody can just be like, dude, this is great fucking rock music. Like that's what I try to put things to. Like I'm like, listen, okay, they're not on fucking Sony or Elektra. They're on a different label, so it's indie rock, but it's just music. It's fucking awesome. Listen to it.
Yeah, like like Death Cab is another band that like their early records. Like I love their early records, and some people could even call those records emo by some of the other definitions, but no one ever thinks of them as like an emo band. You know what I mean? Like at least people that probably listen to their new stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's a term that I hope dies, to be honest, and we could just like call stuff like indie rock or whatever.
Yeah, just indie rock. Let's gentle. Stick with that. I'm good with indie rock.
Because that's what it is. I mean, it's just, for the most part, it was, bands that were put out by independent record labels,
Yeah, some of the greatest labels of all time were all independent record labels, and most of my favorite bands are off of it.
Yeah, for sure. And some of them had great runs. I mean, I was thinking about that the other day, like Jade Tree and Polyvinyl. Polyvinyl still puts out some good stuff, but some of those labels had such
Deep Elm.
Deep Elm, that's another one, yeah.
Deep Elm put out some great shit. Yeah, Jade Tree, like I always go back to that. I'm like, it's crazy because Jade Tree had Lifetime and The Promise Ring, and I think they're two completely different bands.
Totally. But once again, two bands that get labeled as emo,
Yep. All right, so we're gonna come in on the time here. I don't want to keep you all night.
Yeah, no worries, man.
So, like to end this with our segment that we call the Weekly Threes. It's 3 things that we're listening to right now. So 3 things you're listening to that you want people to, it could be new, old, doesn't matter, whatever you're listening to right now, the 3 things you're listening to right now that you want to put out there.
Sure. Let me think for a sec. I've been going through I've been trying to like listen to all like full discographies of bands, and it's not necessarily like an enjoyable thing. I'm just trying to like find bands that like I've never listened to and just like get ideas for songs and stuff like that. But I guess some stuff on repeat. I'm looking through my stuff lately. I came back. I've been on a little bit of a Pinback kick lately, getting back into them. I like a lot of their records. I guess if someone was listening and had never listened to them before, I would say check out Summer in Abaddon. And then let's see who else. I got kind of on. I kind of always come back to the same bands, to be honest. I was listening to Pedro the Lion the other day. I was getting listening to a bunch of their stuff. I guess he's got some documentary out. I kind of want to see. I haven't seen.
Yeah,
it
yet. I did watch it. It's
good.
Pretty fucking crazy.
It's heavy. Yeah,
yeah. It's one of those things where like when it's over, you're like, fuck, man. Like I didn't know the guy that I listened to that I fucking loved his music had all this shit going on.
Yeah, I can only imagine. He's been doing it. He's been doing it for so long. So I do want to check that out. Other than that, I'm bad at this. I'm trying to think. I actually just started listening to Superchunk singers, Mac,
McLaughlin.
yeah, McLaughlin, his solo project, what is it called? Portastatic, yeah, Portastatic.
Yeah.
I never listened to them, and I've heard every Superchunk record. I've only had heard a few songs by his solo project there, so I've been checking that out, and there's some awesome stuff there.
Yeah, they're Superchunk's one of my go-tos all the time. I saw him play a bunch of times when they came back out, probably 2 years ago when they dropped a new album, and I saw them every chance I could. They played like in the city and in Jersey, and like I was just like, okay, I'm going tonight. And I was like, yeah, they don't disappoint. And I had seen them back in the 90s, and I was just like, yeah,
I got
fucking doing it.
I got to see them one time, and yeah, it was great up in Boston. Yeah, they're a great band. Never disappoint.
Yeah. So my 3 for this week are Empire. I Was a Lonely Estate, great band from 2006 to 2016, Michigan indie rock band / emo. Next, I have Moving Mountains, another amazing band that I got to see years and years ago when they first came out, open for a Scottish band called Biffy Clyro that I loved, and Moving Mountains just brought me to just an amazing fucking place in music. I was something I guess I was desperately needing, and I needed it again this week, and I started listening to it again. And last but not least, Sharks Keep Moving, old band from Seattle. Some people may know Jake Schneider, who was Sharks Keep Moving, onto Minus the Bear. So Minus the Bear is probably a bigger following nowadays, but Sharks Keep Moving was one of the first things, which was amazing.
I actually didn't know that. It's the same dude?
Same dude, yeah, Jake Schneider.
Yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah, fucking great. That's why there's a couple splits he puts out, Bear versus Shark. So that's...
Yeah, that makes sense now. Okay. Yeah, I knew there was some like incestuation with some of those bands, but that makes sense now.
Yeah, so those are my 3 for this week. Jake, why don't you let everybody know how to find Twin Foxes, how to find when the new album's going to come out, where to locate your stuff, all that good stuff.
Yeah, we don't really have a website or anything like that, but we do have a Bandcamp, and if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, we're going to have like details about the record release. I want to say that it's probably going to be out probably right after the new year. I was actually talking to the guy today. So that'll be out digitally, and then we're going to have like a GoFundMe basically where you can pre-order a vinyl record if you want, and we'll send it to you.
Awesome. We'll get everything out there we can to help you for that. I'm looking forward to it. I like what I've heard already. Everybody, I implore you to go out, check out Twin Foxes, wait for the new stuff, kind of chomp at the bit, waiting for that to come out. So, Jared, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this today. Everybody, Twin Foxes, check them out.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Well, I can't thank you enough. This has been a delight.
Yeah, it was a good conversation, man. I appreciate it.
So, everyone, as always, go out and have a great time.